Welcome back to another episode of EV Charging Minute. I'm Tony Booth, your host and founder of Stay in Charge, and we bring you this podcast every week to help you learn a little bit more, get a little insight, little knowledge, some best practices for commercial EV charging. That's basically EV charging at any commercial real estate location. Those are all things we want to talk about, right? And what we want to share information about. So again, today, we're here today. As I mentioned last week, one of the things that we talked about a little bit last week was that I wanted to get into a whole series, a little mini series about how to design the right system, right? Like last week, we talked about how one size doesn't fit all and how many of the solutions out there that exist in the, out in the market often are trying to just kind of fit that square peg in a round hole, as they say, and really trying to use an existing widget and make it fit the case. And to me, that's a mistake. It's something that the industry will evolve over time, and you won't see that as much as it is today. But part of that's just a function of the fact it's a new industry, right? New industry. You're not going to have a solution tailored to everybody. They're going to make the generic, generalized solution. And then as more companies come in, I'm sure we'll see more and more unique solutions. And so that's very important to me. It has always been very important to us at Stay in Charge to not just have a single solution. So we have a full range of solutions. And when I say a full range of solutions, it's not just we have 6 different chargers, okay? And it's not that we just have a couple layers of the software you can turn on and off. Like, we have solutions that go from a basic dumb charger to a big fancy screens and all those things, as we talked about last week. So today we're starting day one or podcast one on those 5 key aspects that we look at when we're designing a system for somebody. So we follow the same scenario with everybody we work with, even if it's a hotel, just like we've done hundreds of hotels through our time. We've done hundreds and hundreds of them. So, almost every hotel has a very similar use case, right? But the thing is not every hotel needs to do the same thing. Like, we can't just give them the exact same thing because of these different aspects that we want to look at. So no matter how much we know somebody or how much we know that market, we still start and do the same thing with every single client we work with. And even on clients that we work with that have multiple properties, we'll run this same kind of design aspects for the new properties as well, right? So those 5 key aspects that we're going to talk about over the coming weeks are this. They're your goals. What are your goals for installing EV charging? That's number 1. Number 2, who is going to use them? This makes big difference. We'll get into that next week. Will you charge for them? That's a big question that needs to be asked. And then obviously the yes, no from that gets you into a whole nother flow chart of how we're going to do that. What are the requirements, things like that. So we'll talk about that as well. How will you manage them? And this can be from when we talk management, this can be anything from how are you going to control who uses them? Like, is it an employee badge? Is it an RFID card? Is it a combination? Is it a password we give them? Is it software that anybody can use it and that's how we get paid, right? There's many different things there that can happen as well. Is it inside a gated locked parking area that, okay, well, we know they can't get in here unless they're paying to get in here, kind of thing. So there's a lot of ways we think, look at that as number 4. And then the last thing that kind of wraps back into all this is any local requirements and regulations, because those can have a huge impact as well. If you have, regulations in your community or in your state that require certain things, taxes or reporting, or, even some states are now starting to require, accessible design be put in on the first time you put a charger in. So we have to look at all that stuff, because every piece of that plays back in. And even to the point that, okay, like some of this is super important when you look at some of the stuff uh, that's out there from a regulation standpoint, back to how you will use them and how you will charge for them. For instance, there's regulations in some areas that require to have certain inspections done and certain permits in order to charge someone by the hour or by the kilowatt hour. However, in that same area, if you were to just charge a flat fee, those those fees and permits and reporting requirements go away. So there's a trade-off there, right? Like, do I really want to have this inspection done? Do I need to have this done? Do I need to pay this? And if I do all that, which is great, but is that going to take more money away than if I was just to give it away or just charge a flat fee? So that's why all this is so important to look at, because what happens, we talked more about this, and I don't want to get down that rabbit hole too deep, but what happens if you plug in the single solution, you could put yourself exactly in that scenario where you now need to have a tax audit done. You need to have weights and measures come out. You need to have an inspection from your county. You need to pay this fee. You need to register for that and have this license. And now you need this. You have all that stuff. And then, oh, wait a minute. If I'd have just put a charger in, put an RFID card system in, and charge them $10 or $15 or $20 to have access and park there, I wouldn't have had to do any of that. So you got to see that trade-off there, right? Like I know we were working on a project the other day, and some of the costs were going to be somewhere around $500-600 a year for a registration system. I was like, okay, is that really worth it? So that's why we got to make sure we go through all this stuff and look at the different stuff. So we start, okay, moving on. Today's big topic. Let's really get into it here. Moving on to what's really important today. And this is where we start with everybody. Everybody we talk with, actually, if any of you have ever been on, on any of our pre-meetings or our discovery meetings, that's where we start, even in a discovery standpoint, because we want to know what the goals of the property are to even understand if EV charging is even worthwhile. Like, sometimes you look at it and somebody might say, oh, I think I could put some EV chargers in and maybe make some money. Well, if that's your only goal, and we realize that you're in a location that is not going to get a lot of traffic, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to install, then we're going to, kind of guide you on, hey, the ROI might not be there yet. So that's why the goals are really the number one thing we start with. And on the goal side, we kind of break it into six sections or six core goals. You might sit and listen to that and say, well, there's probably other things, because there are, right? There are some other small goals, but these are really the main six things that we see consistently that you can get out of offering EV charging at your commercial real estate location. And number one is one that a lot of people look at, a lot of people think about, and it's all about making money, right? Like, we want to put these in to make some money. And that's a very good reason to put them in, right? But even making money has its layers of that goal. Okay. What are you trying to do? Right? When you say you want to go make money, do you want to make the equivalent of a gas station, right? An electron gas station? Is that what you mean by making money? Is that going to be your primary focus? Is this commercial property going to be a convenience store and a EV charging station? Or, as some of the places out in California now, they're building drive-up cafes with charging. Is that the main goal of the property? Because that's a big difference from another property that may be saying, well, I just want to make some small incremental revenue. Like, I really not, this is still not going to be my primary business. I'm still going to be selling dinners or appetizers, or I'm still going to be renting rooms to someone, but I'd like to have some of the, the additional revenue that might come in from having these chargers out there, because making money with them is not a problem. They do generate revenue, but there are some things that can cause trade-offs with that as well. If you are going to try to make money with them, again, if you're in the wrong jurisdiction, now you've got to go through a bunch of hoops to get approved to do that. So when you start putting all that together, you got to look at those trade-offs and see what really happens there. So number one is, are you doing it to make money? The second thing is, second goal that we see, kind of the number two goal is to attract EV drivers. Obviously, if you look at the first one and you're going to be an electron gas station, then attracting EV drivers is what you have to do. But for many other commercial installations, it's about attracting more EV drivers, whether it be tenants that come in to rent property, or is it a hotel trying to bring in new guests? Is it a retail shop trying to have people stop at their location versus somewhere else? So attracting EV drivers is the best reason of all. And really, this is where we see most people, if you have that as your core goal and you build all of your modeling around attracting EV drivers, they're going to be the most successful stations out there, because we do know EV drivers go to places where they can charge. That's a number one thing they're looking for, is a place to charge. And if you want them to shop with you, stay with you, sleep with you, buy from you, drink coffee with you, then putting a charging solution in is going to help attract them. And it's going to do very well. It does a very good job at that. So that's number two. Number three is what I call like increased loyalty, and existing scenarios. This is kind of in the third, and the reason why we kind of group these together, because the one piece really doesn't apply to a whole lot of people. But from the increase in loyalty spot, this is about keeping your existing customers coming back. Okay, so this is, you've got a hotel and you don't have EV charging today, and you've got guests that have gotten used to coming to your hotel. They're staying there. They're spending time there. They come back every year. Well, the family upgrades to a new EV, and, you don't have EV chargers. They may go somewhere else. Same way with an apartment complex, right? You don't have charging. Lease comes up. That resident wants to own a Tesla. They move. Same way, but this gets further down into retail and stuff like that as well. So if you have a shopping center, a strip mall, shopping center, something like that, that has EV charging, and one a mile away that doesn't, you might have more EV drivers going to, that are used to coming to your shopping center, maybe your grocery store, and now they stop because they went to another one because you didn't put the EV charging to keep up. So that's a good reason for them. And under this same area of loyalty, we put in two other key factors, and that's promotion, sales, advertising, things like that. Like, do we want to, because we have EV chargers, be able to use that for promotions? Some places will use loyalty points to give free charging away, right? If you build up enough points, the points cover your cost. It's kind of like the gas programs that a lot of the grocery stores do. But you can do the same with EV charging. So that increases loyalty again, and it's a promotional way to get people in. And then the other last piece that we look at on this increasing loyalty kind of side of a goal is more related to when we get into the condominiums and the multifamily residence that's owned, not the rental types, but the condominiums, the HOAs, the multifamily residential buildings, because now you have people that live there that may want to charge. And so this is where we got to figure that out, because we want them to, one, never want to leave us, right? And you also want to make sure we're as new people come in and we're trying to sell, people trying to sell whatever, there's that loyalty and that EV charging's there to help increase that. So that's really about this, the downstream effects, and this whole increased loyalty side. It's about downstream effects, but it's also about some places that need to do it just to stick with the times, right? To keep people coming back. So that's number four. Number five that we talk about, get into, and that's in improving sustainability. I'm sorry, that's number four. I got off. I'm getting ahead of me here. We just finished number three. We're in number four now, which is improving sustainability. So these are your green initiatives, your carbon credits, things like that. If that's part of your company culture, if that's something that you want to be known for, then EV charging is a great way to promote sustainable transportation, right? You can get it in, you can have it. And as we talked about several weeks ago in the marketing, this stuff plays great, hosting events and things like that as well too. So improving sustainability is another good goal to have. Avoiding penalties is number five. Actually, I realize here we're six aspects, not five, so I'll change that in the beginning. But so number five is avoiding penalties. This can come in a couple different forms. One could be a local jurisdiction, things like that, local ordinances, building codes. We're seeing a lot of places are starting to add EV charging spaces into parking lot design codes and requirements. So if you're building a new building in certain areas, certain states, certain jurisdictions, they're going to require that you put X number of chargers in per parking space. So that's a whole area we've got to, be avoiding those penalties and any fees associated with that. But then you can also get into this coming down from like a franchise side, and it's really getting early stages now. You don't see this, but we know it's coming. Kind of just like Wi-Fi. You think about it, if you were a franchise owner of certain locations, whether they were quick serve restaurants, things like that, as a brand, they probably early on didn't require much about Wi-Fi. Hotels, things like that wasn't required. But over time, as Wi-Fi became more popular, of course, now you're pretty much required to have it. So the same thing's going to happen with EV charging, and it'll move in different rates depending on where what type of property you have. But that could be a penalty as well. If you own a hotel and you're not required, or you're required to have EV chargers, and you're not keeping up and you didn't put them in, you might be getting a fine from them. Or if you put in a system that doesn't meet their requirements, you could be getting a fine from them. So that's a whole nother part of a goal, is to avoid any penalties and all that. And then the last one, number six, is information and data. And this comes down to kind of how much information and data you want to get. Do you want to know who's there, when they're there, how long they're there, things like that. Now, where we see this really play out, where this aspect may be a high priority, is in places like casinos, shopping centers, things like that. Because we want to know, like, okay, we've got EV drivers. Are they coming in? Are they sitting in their car? Are they actually charging and going into into our facilities and using them? What's going on there? And those people we can now capture and market to. So a lot of casinos, you'll find, will set up chargers, and they won't charge the people for using them, but they will require you to put your email address in. They will require you to maybe download their app. And this can be done. This is growing in other markets as well, like cafes and stuff like that. EV charging can be another great way to get people to join your loyalty programs and promote your loyalty programs and your apps, because you can set up that, we come to my grocery store, you can get free EV charging if you are one of our rewards members. Download our app, become a rewards member, sign up for this, and you'll start getting points that give you a discounted rate on EV charging or things like that. So information and data is a very big thing that can come out of EV charging. And it's important to know if that's important to you or not, because again, what we collect depends on how integrated and networked these chargers are. So those are your five key aspects. And so what we do, if you're sitting there and you want to, save this podcast and come back one day as you're kind of working through your own aspect here, what we do is take and list those 6 items out in a line, and we use a scoring system with them. So our first kind of working with a customer, we're going to ask them to go through this, and we're going to assign a rating. We don't want to put them, 1 through 6, because that's really not That's not doing us the right justice that we want. What we want to do is know making money, 1 through 4, how important is that? Attracting EV drivers, 1 through 4, how important is that? Increasing loyalty, 1 through 4, how important is that? Each one of those things we go through and we will ask them, how important is each of those items for you, so that we can get a rating of 1 through 4. That allows us to then look at each one in more detail, then really rate them, and know, because making money and attracting EV drivers may be 4, both 4. That's okay. One may not be more important. They might be equally important to start with. So then we can use that, knowing that both of those are important, as possible trade-offs as we're designing the system, possible things to make the better system. But if we know that making money is the only and number one goal, then there are things that we don't allow to not be part of the system. So that's where we go. We do that scoring system. And then from that, we use that as we go into the next aspects. As you go into each one of your following aspects, you're going to use this framework of your goals, your ranking of your goals, to help determine what's important. And to kind of give you an example of how that works is I want to share the process of this, looking at like a little cafe, right? We've got a cafe, coffee shop kind of place. Let's say one of those places you go in, they want you to sit down. They serve fresh food. They serve coffee. They serve whatever, right? Maybe open normal business hours, or even 24/7. It doesn't matter how much they're open, but we're going to look, they're two very similar properties. Both have different goals, right? So if we are talking with one and their number one thing is to attract EV drivers, but just importantly, they want to make money and they want to improve loyalty. So they, improve loyalty and get more advertising out of it, like drive up sales, right? Like maybe they want to drive up sales and they want, so for them, they're going to want a full network. They're going to want a solution that's fully networked, so they know absolutely everybody that's using it. They want to be able to talk to those people, interact with those people. Heck, they might even want one of those big screens out in the parking lot so they can promote today's menu or specials and, hey, come on in, and things like that. So that to build that system for them, perfect system, it will do everything they want, but it could cost $10,000, $10,000 or more to build that system, right? But it's going to check all 6 boxes, right? It's going to give you everything you wanted. We're going to avoid penalties. We're going to give you the information and data, and we're going to do everything you wanted with that thing. But again, it took an investment, and it may require $1,000 to $2,000 a year investment ongoing to keep that operational. So there's the weighing of the ROI. Now, you could take a coffee shop down the street, very similar, and they say, you know what? I don't really care about making money. Like, that's not important to me whatsoever. I just want to be able to have my guests use it. And I know that through people coming in and having that charger out there, that I'll get some more people and I'll sell some more sandwiches and I'll sell a few more things. And maybe I'll do a membership program and I'll charge $5 a month to have access to the charger or something like that, right? So in that instance, they just want to, the one and only goal they had, or main goal, is attracting EV drivers. Increasing loyalty was, up there in that situation, and, maybe some sustainability. But that's all they really cared about. They weren't worried about collecting the data. They weren't worried about, making the money. So they didn't have to have all these systems to collect fees from everybody every time they plugged in. So in that situation, we can create them a solution that's just a simple charger. It could be as simple as it could just be in the parking lot and anybody could plug into it. And it could be while the store's open, the charger's on. When the store closes, the charger shuts off. That's a very simple solution that they could buy for $1,000 and you know, for less than a couple grand, they've got an EV charger in that's attracting EV drivers, increasing loyalty back to their store, and it has no carry-on cost. So that solution there checks 2, maybe 3 of these goals, and it's 1/10 of the price, or you know, 1/20th of the price. So that's why it's so important to know what your goals are. Because if you're just trying to, hey, I want to bring a few more people in here every day. I just want a few people to come in every day. Well, if you have a restaurant, a place where people are only staying for an hour or two, you could draw some people in, and somebody plugging their car up for an hour while they sit in your cafe, right? It's going to cost you like, I don't know, $1 something. You know, I know that adds up, right? Like I don't discount that it's $1 something, but think about it. If you know, like if the typical customer comes in, grabs a cup of coffee and leaves, and you know, if somebody stays there for an hour, they're going to buy a second cup, or they're going to buy this, you know, whatever it is, right? If you know that bringing them in for that longer time will get you some more money, then, hey, that's a pretty easy way to do it, right? So that's why it's so important to really understand what your goals are. Because not having those goals set up front, you could find yourself building a system that's way overbuilt, way costly, or on the opposite side, you could build a system that's way underbuilt. You know, like you could be in this thing and then all of a sudden you're like, well, wow, I thought I was going to have this and this, and then you don't have it. So make sure you're doing your homework there, talking to your people about what are the goals, what are the real goals that you're trying to do here, so that we can get the right system in place. Because each one of those has their own, you know, own thing that's going to drive it. If you just want to improve sustainability, help, you know, green initiatives, then that $1,000 charger is all you need, right? Maybe an added $250 to put it on some type of access control, so only your customers or only your tenants or only your employees are using it, right? But you see my point here. If that's what you're trying to do, then you don't need a whole lot of other stuff. So that's why it's so important here, to make sure that you understand your goals. You start with your goals, then we build from there. Next, we'll go into who will use them. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about next week. Understanding who's going to use your chargers now allows us to start building the next part of that solution. So that's all for today. Again, as always, I hope you learned something new today or got some ideas to think about when you're looking at EV charging. And as always, if you need help, reach out to us. We're always here to help. You can find us on any of our social media. You can reach out on our website or send us an email at sales@stayincharge.com. Our team is always here to help you free. We do free assessments, free consultations for everybody. So everybody have a great weekend. We're going into a holiday weekend here in the U.S., so I hope everybody has a nice 3-day weekend. Enjoy it. Stay safe. Don't burn anything up in the backyard with the barbecue, and don't burn yourself at the beach too much. Put the sunscreen on and have a wonderful holiday weekend. And remember what it's all about. It's Memorial Day. Give thanks to all those that have served for us and all those things. Okay. See you all next week. Have an amazing weekend.